rules. Like whatever's normal in your world is your world. And I think we get so stuck in this conditioning piece of what we should do, you know, that you should meet someone and you should be with them forever, and mum should be at home or dad should be at home, or whatever the bloody rules are. It's really boring. I mean, just do you, like work out what you want and what you don't want. And that's a really good starting point. And then find someone who fits into that mold. So
welcome back, everyone. So glad to have you here on another episode of The Few. As you can tell, the studio is being held together today by chewing gum and sticky tape as Sean and I come to you live from the south coast of New South Wales on my farm, which is very nice of you, Sean, to travel all the way down from Queensland so I could feed the chickens this morning.
No, it was a beautiful drive down to the south coast this morning, and yes, as you said, there's a few things with sticky tape and things like that are holding us together. But clearly, my background's not the usual caliber, but it's about conversations.
It's a very powerful white wall.
Exactly,
massive impact there. Look at your beautiful face. Look, it's a little bit like New Zealand, isn't it? When you drive down here, you notice it's very green. It's very lush. Lots of vibrant, happy people as you come down here on to the south coast, which is probably not a bad segue into our guest for today's podcast, Lisa O'Neill. Lisa is joining us all the way from New Zealand, looking bright and chirpy. The queen of the juggle is going to talk to us today about living your best life, finding happiness and contentment, everything you do. Lisa, thanks so much for joining me and Sean today on The Few.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And as they say, Lisa, thanks for being had. It's great to have you back. It was awesome to have the experience of introducing you to the members of my inner circle group last year, and have you, I think, in the midst of all the COVID stuff, beginning and people freaking out.
No C word. I thought we were a C word free. Environment.
No, I wanted to bait a little bit of the stuff that we talked about at the start.
All right, okay.
So the passion Lisa showed
last C-word
podcast. But I believe that Lisa may be a little bit over COVID, perhaps.
A little bit over COVID. I'm just sick of it. It's an excuse now. And I'm sick of it. I'm not really good with excuses. And I'm like, people are just using it now as an opportunity to whinge. And, it's like, you've always had to make the best of what you got, right? And now it's just, you've got to be, and there's all those shitty words like pivot and agile and all that crap. But you just got to be a little bit smart, and you've just got to work around it. And life's about working around stuff, because there's always going to be something, COVID. There's always going to be some kind of pandemic going on in your world,
And how important, Lisa, is it to have a sense of humour while all this is going on?
Oh, I know. I actually found I got excited when COVID happened. I was like, the opportunities in this are mind-blowing. And my husband was like, oh, my God, it's too soon,
Are we going to have all the kids at home?
Like, no, there's opportunities in this. There's opportunities for businesses. I know businesses who have tripled, in this time. And I know people that have developed skills they would never have developed before. There's so much good shit in this, and everyone just wants to talk about vaccines and what you can't do, and I'm like, oh, shut up.
I think one of the things that we probably didn't need to reinforce was that it's really uncomfortable having a stick shoved up your nose.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's like so wrong. Oh yeah, it drives me mental.
I said to my kids, I took my kids for a COVID test. They're like, oh, Dad, that's really uncomfortable. It's like, look, 6 years ago, you stuck all sorts of stuff up your nose and it was no issue. Just remember, this is a learned belief.
So Lisa, you're as we've talked about before, and having, as I said, had the opportunity to work with you before, one of your passions is about helping people to live happy lives, do what they love to do. And I mean, that's the nature of the concept of The Few, and The Few podcast is about people actually living the life that they want to and the life that they choose, and enjoying it and being passionate about it. And I know that from the last time we saw you, your energy is it rubs off, and it really lifted our entire group. And a lot of people have taken some of that philosophy away. Where did that philosophy for you come from? You're quite, looking at the glass is probably 3/4 full, not even half full by the sounds of it. Where did that develop for you?
Yeah, well, I was marinated in self-belief by my father, so I was really lucky. My father is extraordinary in that he was into the power of the mind in the 70s and all the stuff, so he was like, if you can believe it, you can achieve it. And so there was all that sort of stuff that I was and I was really, really lucky that I was raised by a father who just said, you can be anything, you can do anything, you're limitless, like don't ever let anyone tell you can't do something. And so and then I got to school and they said, oh, you can't do that and you can't do that. I was like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not sure you know who I am. My father said, I can do what I want. And I've got a little bit of oppositional defiance where I just get really revved up when someone says I can't do something. So the word can't it just like petrol on a fire. But I think I just really have always understood what a privilege it is to be alive. It's such a privilege. People talk about privilege all the time. And I'm like, if you have a heartbeat, you have a privilege. And don't waste it. I get really pissed off watching people just walking around absorbing oxygen and not achieving anything. I'm like, why are you here? Like, what is the point of you? How are you helping the world right now? Except you're just robbing oxygen off the rest of us.
So Lisa, why is it so hard for people to think that way though? Like we know that this is how we should think, yet people get so caught up.
Yeah, it's all conditioning. I think they get conditioned from a really early age. Most people, like I had a really different experience, obviously, than a lot of people. From the age of 1, we're told you're wrong, you can't do this, that's not acceptable, you're not okay, you're not good enough, that's naughty.
That's normally because you're shitting on the carpet, which even when you're an adult, it's not acceptable.
Apparently, no, not ideal. But, and there are things that we do that are wrong, but it's like this constant limit where we get, I really love Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The 4 Agreements, and he's written, everyone talks about The 4 Agreements because it's a really well-known book, but he's written about another 6 that are extraordinary, and he talks about conditioning humans, and it's so fear-based, and it's all about keeping everyone small and controlling everyone in the family, and so in the complete extreme of my father, my mother spent her whole life saying, don't draw attention to yourself, who do you think you are? Sit down and be quiet. And I was like, whoa, it was quite a mind-blowing experience to have those 2 alternate universes happening in my own lounge. My father was like, go, be amazing. And my mother was like, you sit down, behave yourself. And I was like, oh. And so I constantly surfed this line of which one should I do? And I do suffer from kind of good girl syndrome where I was born a people pleaser. So I quite like, I've spent the first 30 years of my life going, please like me. And now I'm like I don't care. Turning 50 helps. Turning 50 really helps with people pleasing, can I tell you? But yeah, I did have a big people pleasing gland in my early days.
So Lisa,
which I think is an overachieving thing too.
You live a very busy life. You have a lot of challenges. One of the interesting things for Sean and I, if we have a female guest, is like, man, we are going to get out of our depth real quick here, because we're going to be talking about stuff we've got no idea about, like what it must be like trying to nurture 4 children and a maternal instinct through life and achieve a career, maintaining that self-worth and all the challenges that women have that Sean and I just don't have to worry about. How do you do it?
Well, you're a wee bit safer with me. My superpower is I look like a woman and I think like a man. So that's my superpower.
That's the best way to have that, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other way could be a little bit extreme. But the interesting thing is I have a real detachment from my children. So a lot of mothers, I had this woman, talking to this woman yesterday, so attached to their children. Like their children are their everything. Their children, they're literally still attached to them. And they have this whole like, I am a reflection of my children. The quality of my children's lives is a direct reflection on me. I'm like, nah. My job, I brought you in, I grew you, I brought you into the world. I taught you everything I know, off you hop. And so now I go, if you want to stuff up your life, knock yourself out. Because that's your business, right? And I think that's probably helpful. I don't run around after my kids, and I don't sort of have this massive attachment to their outcomes. My job is to give them the best platform ever. And then it's up to them. And if they fuck it up, that's not my problem, actually.
Which is a refreshing brew.
My eldest son went through a bit of a phase where he was giving that a shot. And I said, look, if you want to ruin your life, good for you, because no one's going to judge me. I've got 3 spears. They're all going to go, oh, well, what's wrong with him? Because the other 3 turned out fine. So and it's your choice. And I think people need to be made responsible for their lives, especially children. And one of the biggest problems is you've got adults still taking responsibility for their 30-year-old children, paying their bills, running around after them, fixing their shit. I'm like, no, you're not helping. You're enabling. And yeah, so my kids have all grown up pretty fast and pretty hard. I remember my daughter saying to me, I don't like you going away. And I was like, you know what, suck it up. Some people's parents are in Afghanistan. Like, I'm just in a 5-star hotel. There's worse problems in the world. And I think we let these children be really indulgent. And mothers particularly suffer badly from guilt. Oh, if I work, I'm a bad person. No, you're not. You're like showing, I think it was Sting who interviewed, they said to him, do you think you're a great father? And he said, well, if you're counting whether I, tuck them into bed at night, read them stories and help them clean their teeth, I'm a shit father. But if you talk about being a role model for what an extraordinary life looks like, I'm an amazing father. So I like the fact that my 2 daughters get to see a house where I do what I want, I work, and that's okay. And my sons go, oh, okay, wow. So that's a thing, because they think it's normal, because that's all they've ever had.
And how do you deliver that role model type of, how do you be a role model to children as a couple, as relationships? You obviously met your husband very early on. You're one of the few in that you've sustained the children coming through the eat, sleep and shit phase and find happiness. Like where you are right now is actually quite a rare commodity. You haven't had to sacrifice family for a career. You've managed to hold it all together.
That's not easy. Like, that's not easy. But I think the point, Mark and I have nothing in common, which is really useful, because we don't take anything for granted. So everything I like, he doesn't. Everything he likes, I don't. So we're constantly having to check in with each other. We don't assume anything, because I don't like any of the stuff he likes, even food. Like, we don't have anything in common. We have the same address and the same names of our children. But we're an extraordinary team, because what I'm shit at, he's great at, and what I'm great at, he's shit at. And we're really clear about that. And we don't really have gender roles. As I say, I've worked through all of my children, through all of their lives. And Mark's done, so I did the first sort of 10 years of kids at home, as in took the lead. Mark's taken the lead for the last 10 years. I was like, you know what, I've done enough. I reckon you're in, tag. And he's really good at it. He's he's calmer, he's consistent, he's organized. I'm in chaos. So the kids notice, they're like, oh God, it's so much easier when you're not here, Mum, because I just blow the house apart with chaos. So, and I think the point is, Mark and I contribute to each other's lives. So I go, I'm here to make your life better, you're here to make my life better. And we're a team we're literally a business. We're just partners that are running a small company with 4 staff.
And do you have to consciously think about that, or does it happen naturally? Do you have to sort of pull yourself up and go, oh, I've got to lean into this now, I've got to give a little bit more? Do you have sort of rituals or?
I think sometimes there's a bit of, it's like, hang on, who's the giver and who's the taker here? So I think there's a little bit of, I have meetings with myself twice a week where I literally go, cool, out of 10, how am I feeling about Mark? What can I do about that? And I'm actually checking in, because I think you've got to check in. And because I have so much chaos and I have so many people in my world, I literally have to check in with, hang on, what's going on and what's really going on? Because I think it's really easy to get absent-minded. Yeah. And you hear it all the time. And unfortunately, especially from men, where they just get up, go to work, get up, go to work. They wake up 4 years later and they're like, what do you mean you don't like me? Yeah. You haven't bothered to check in that their wife now hates them, their children think that he's a dick. And they just, not even the dog wants to talk to him. And they just haven't checked in and been conscious And I think that's really important, because to me, people are everything. That's the people over everything all the time.
And is that the people pleaser in you, though? Part of that, and being selfless,
but I just think honouring people, and you're like, I either have people in my life I honour or I get rid of them. I'm really ruthless. I'm pretty ruthless with people. If they're not adding value, out you go. Because I haven't got time.
I think there's not enough people, Lisa, that follow that. Maybe not to that level of black and white necessarily, but some people don't follow it all. I've known them for 20 years, so I should keep them in my life. But they're like an anchor.
Yeah. And it's like, they're not even a friend. They're someone you used to know. They're someone you used to have something in common with. And it's like that. And my question is always, I reckon everyone in your world contributes or contaminates. And I say to my teenage son, you're fucking contaminating my world right now, brother. So what's going on? This isn't
that's their job.
Yeah, I know. And I'm going, and it's not your fault because you're in a phase, and I get it, but I can't actually be bothered. So just take yourself away. And I think I'm really clear in how I'm feeling with people. I'm pretty straight up. Like, you are pissing me off. Get away. And I don't think enough people are honest like that. And not honest enough with their kids. Like, just don't be a dick. Like I said to my daughter the other day, I'm like, you might be the cleverest, most educated human on the planet, or heading towards that way. But if you're a bitch, no one wants to work with you. So fix yourself up, and people need to hear that, because otherwise they turn up in the workplace and then you're like, wow, who was your parent? Like, who did no one tell you you're a dick? Like, I think it's our job, and it's our job to build them up, but it's also our job to keep it real and go, okay, so outside of this house, that's not going to work. What are you doing right now? That behavior, not okay.
That clarity is really important. And it's interesting because I don't think we've really spoken about that clarity in decision-making in family life or in life in general, right? But I think if you can test this theory, I guess. If you give people clarity and they understand where they sit with you, their own decision making, you give them the right to make a decision for themselves. Whereas if it's ambiguous and you never do anything wrong and you get love all the time and
you can't learn. Like, until someone goes, mate, you're being a 4 out of 10 right now, you go, am I? And it's how you bring awareness, I think. And my eldest son, he had no awareness of the impact his behavior had on people. And so we had a numbering system, and I just walk past him and go 4. And he either was 2 down, 2 low or 2 up. And I was like 11. He was like, oh, okay. So he knew that if he was at 11, he had to pull it back. 8 was the optimum. 4 meant try harder. 11 meant pull back. So just learn to, he's really full on, and he couldn't see that. And I see that in humans all the time, where I go, you don't have any awareness of the impact you're having. And we need people to tell us. Like, I caught up with a friend about 6 months ago. I was really grumpy, caught up with this mate. Actually, it was more than 6 months, must have been a year ago. And I met him, and he was like, how are you? And I went, and he went, wow, you're being such a bitch. And I went,
2.
am I? Yeah. I was being a bitch. I had this little rant, like he said, how are you? And I went, blah, 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 blah. And he went, oh, yuck, you're being a real bitch right now. And I went, am I? And he went, oh my God, you are awful. And I went, oh, thanks. That's great feedback. Because I know not many people are brave enough to say that to me. And I was like, that's awesome feedback. He said, are you tired or what's going on? He said, because you're just awful. I went, oh, good check. And I think you need people like that.
Oh, you absolutely do. I mean, it's that thing of, when someone's got something in their teeth, how many people will not tell that person because it makes them uncomfortable? And then when you see it in a bigger context, those shows like, American Idol and Australian Idol, those singing shows, when someone gets on and they belt it out and they just basically say, you're shit. And they're like, all my family and friends say I'm good, so I must be good. And you're like, no, you're actually shit, because they haven't told you you're actually shit.
Exactly. They're not getting real feedback. And I quite often go to people, are you okay? Because you feel a bit off. And they go, oh, actually, I am off. And 1, I think it's nice people notice. And 2, you don't have to go there. You don't have to say, why are you off, or tell me. But just, I think being noticed is really important. And I think sometimes we don't notice our own behavior. And it's good to surround yourself with people who will call you on your shit, I think.
Sounds like a great idea for an app, the Human Score app. And you can wander in and here's my $4 for my smoothie, and you're a 3.
Yeah. We just had
I think there was a movie about that. There's actually a movie where they had positive or negative points being allocated based on human interactions. There was a movie about that. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, it's a bit
we just
interesting.
had a holiday with my 4 children, and 2 of them have partners now. So there was 8 of us. And at the end of it, we all sat down and did a review and went, right, what rating do you give everyone out of 10 for their behaviour for the last days? And it was hilarious because we had, my daughter rating my son's girlfriend. So there was all kinds of stuff. I don't know, she was maybe. So we were doing this whole rating thing of, what do you reckon? And my son's boyfriend, who had just met for the first time, and we were all like, we all thought he was extraordinary. Like, he met us, and it's not easy meeting all of us, and he just held his own so beautifully. We were like, yeah, we reckon he can have a soft.
So with your kids' partners meeting the family, do they tend to go through a few partners after that sort of experience?
Never to be seen again.
They're only quite new at this. They're only 10 to 19, so we haven't been through lots of that. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Did you mention that to them as well? And say, statistically, you're not going to be here in a year, so take this feedback and hopefully enhance.
It's good to know, right? It's good to know. And we're like, oh, okay. And it's just good to notice. And just having that kind of real robust, like, who didn't do it for you, or who's really not okay. And I think it's really honest. I think it's good.
Not enough people are doing it because they're just tolerating people's shit, I think, too much. So we've talked about others.
Yeah, and I always say to people when I work with clients, I always say, if I do something you don't like, please tell me. If I do something you do like, please tell everyone else. Because I don't need people coming up to me going, oh, it was amazing. I'm like, yeah, cool, awesome. That's not helpful. So tell other people I was amazing, because then I'll get more work. That's a good idea. And if I did something wrong, don't ring 5 people and go, well, you won't believe what bloody Lisa O'Neill did. I said, tell me. Because people don't tell you what you did that was wrong, and they do tell others, and it's really wrong. And it's people are, not strong enough to do that. And I think actually going, hey, mate, I've got some feedback. I love this, but I hated that. Yeah.
It's an absolute disservice for anyone. Like, I've had that same thing with one of the professionals I deal with that I referred a client to. That client's taken 12 months and just about to leave before they actually mentioned to me that they're having a problem with the person I referred them to. And I was like, what? And they didn't even tell them. And I'm like, well, but so half the problem is yes, some of the things you didn't do what they asked you to do, but you've also not given them the opportunity to go, oh crap, we didn't live up to our standard. We need to lift the game. So obviously talked about a lot of other people. I know that in our last interaction, you then shifted a bit of focus into ourselves and how to actually take care of ourselves and some strategies around doing that to allow ourselves to be happier. So what are the strategies and some of the techniques and things and I guess things that you've done, like going away when your kids didn't want you to, but I think that was the reason why you were going away was because of your kids, wasn't it? So you can have a bit of space. What are some of the strategies that you suggest people use to give themselves something?
People have to notice what makes them happy. And we're not trained to notice what makes us happy. We're trained to notice what makes other people happy. So we're constantly checking around everyone going, am I making you happy? Is the school teacher pissed off at me at the moment? Is my boyfriend angry with me? Is my sister talking to me? We're always looking for feedback, but we're not actually going, do I like this? Do I like that? How do I feel? And, and I say to people, if you're new to this, start with, hey, do you want a coffee? Do I want a coffee? Do I want a coffee? Maybe I want a tea. Maybe I want a hot chocolate. What do you want? Don't just go, yeah, I'll have a coffee, because that was the first word offered. Really think about, what do I feel like right now? What do I feel like right now? And what makes you happy? Like, what is it that and notice when suddenly you have to go, oh, I'm like so happy right now. What is happening right now around me that is making me so happy? Is it because I'm outside? Is it because I'm with this person? Is it because I just sold something and that gives me a high? Is it because I slept really well last night? Go back from the moment you feel really happy, work out what's going on and just get more of that. So if it was sleep, if it was sales, if it was do more of what you notice makes you feel good. I think it's so important.
What about the different types of happy, Lisa? What about the quick fix happy, or the bottom of 8 beers happy, versus that deep seated contentment and happiness?
Yeah, and I think all that that comes at different times, right? Because you can be out doing that, 8 beers deep going, I am so right now, I'm going to hate myself tomorrow, but that's okay, because you're having a really great moment. And I think that's fine. And people say, oh, he shouldn't be drinking like that. I'm like, no, he's so happy. Does it matter? Like, so what? And I think we're so judgmental about people that make themselves happy. And yeah, I don't know. I think you've got to just do you. And I think sometimes you've got to give up short-term things to get long-term happiness, which is pretty boring. I'm a major hedonist, so I'm constantly looking for pleasurable moments. Like everything I wear makes me feel good. Everything I eat makes me feel good. I'm a real, I'm obsessed with, like, even pens. Like I just go, I'm not writing with you. You are not worth my life. And I'm really particular about shit. So I have, everything I use in my house is beautiful. I don't save anything. I drink out of the best crystal or the best china because it makes me feel good. And so I'm like, I'm not drinking out of that cup. My kids go, oh my God. And I'm like, no, I'm just not, because that cup is just not friendly enough. I don't feel good when I get out of that cup. So I take it kind of quite a high level. And even fabrics, like clothing is really important to me. And I go, oh, I want to wear that. And oh, I want that color. Or, get really, rather than just, there's a difference between getting dressed and just covering your body, right? Like covering your body's the law, that you have to cover your body.
Very silly law.
So covering your body is important, but it's like, how do you feel when you wear stuff? And I know people apologize when they turn on, oh, don't look at me. I'm like, do not leave the house if you have to apologize for how you look. Just stay home. I'm like, you're just making the world ugly. So yeah, I think just get really clear. And people don't know what they like because they haven't. I've done a PhD. My PhD, I call it a personal happiness. And for me, my PhD is all about what makes me happy. Everything from, what I wear, what I eat, what I do, who I hang out with. And then I'm like, it doesn't make me happy. I'm out.
So what do you say to the people, the other school, who's like, it was hard and sacrifice and everything's difficult and you've lived a fulfilling life if you've struggled and conquered all of that difficulty. What do you say to that camp?
Yeah, I just say good luck. I'm like, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And because the key word you use in there is should. And so when you're shoulding all over yourself, it's like, oh, I should go for a run. I'm like, do you want to? Like, do you want to go for a run? Because if you want, I don't do running. I'm sure if you wanted to go for a run and you love running, you would go, yeah, amazing. I've never had that experience myself, but I have heard other people have it. And so I'm like, don't run. I always see miserable runners and I feel like they're running because they should. It's like, there's no way to spend your life. Like, I think we get the wrong things right all the time. All the time. We're just worried about the wrong shit. Like, what will people think? What size pants am I wearing? Does this look good? Does the driveway have any weeds in it? Like, who fucking cares? Just live your life. We get so hung up on boring stuff. And it's that keeping up with the Joneses and the appearances. And, it's really boring. Really boring. Yeah.
So one of the strategies you touched on at our previous interaction was the card system, once a month that you use with your family. Can you talk to that? I'd love to share that with our listeners as well.
The card system on the rating cards, or which I have?
No. On the 1 day a month where you get to do what you actually want to do.
Yeah.
That's it.
So everyone gets to play do what they want 1 day a month. So they have a day where they don't have to, there's no obligation. And so I just I hate obligation. And I think part of being a human is there is obligation. You have to pay rent, you have to go to school, there's rules, there's laws, there's stuff. But I think we need time off from obligation because obligation builds resentment. And so it's like, have a day where you just do whatever the fuck you want. Where you go, I'm going to have ice cream for breakfast. I'm going to drink champagne at morning tea. I'm not going to clean anything. I'm not going to make my bed. All the stuff that you think you should do, just don't. Don't visit someone you don't want to. Don't go to bed. Don't go to work. Just do whatever you want, And I think people don't even know what to do with that. When I talk to people about that, they go, I wouldn't know where to start. I wouldn't know where to begin. I'm like, right, well, write down. Imagine your perfect day. What does your perfect day look like? Like, what time do you get up? What do you eat for breakfast? What are you wearing? Where are you? Are you at the beach? Are you on a farm? Where are you? Like, and who are you with? And what would you do? And because we're all so limited, it's really boring. So I think, really thinking about what would be your perfect day and what's your perfect breakfast. And my son said once, tacos. I'm like, let's do that.
Do it.
So we had tacos for breakfast. It's not that hard.
Does that build some sort of, reward mechanism? There's that theory that the reason the French are so thin is because they always eat rich, delicious food, so they feel fulfilled rather than just eating all the time. Do you think there's some kind of truth to that theory, that if you've got this thing, this release, this moment? I'm thinking of that new series on TV called The Purge, where you can go out and kill anyone you want, one night a year. If they're annoying you, you can go do it. But do you think that the release that comes from that one day of obligation gets you through the other 29, or helps get through the other 29?
I think we need to give ourselves like the space to, and it's not so much doing it, it's even considering it. Like when I work with groups and I say, imagine if you were just wondering, like what would happen if you didn't turn up to work tomorrow? And I can say that to 1,000 people in a conference room and their whole face light up and they go, and they're so happy. And I'm like, so you didn't even do it. You just wondered about it and it was exciting. Like just the thought of going, not going to go to work tomorrow. That's why I'm self-employed, because I do what I want, when I want, how I want. And I'm actually unemployable, but then I work 7 days a week, so it doesn't kind of work. But I love what I do, and so. But I think giving yourself the opportunity to wonder. We don't wonder enough about. I wonder what. Instead we just do what's in front of us, and we eat, sausages for dinner because they were on special. Instead of, I love sausages, let's have sausages every night. Like, what do and I just don't think we honor ourselves enough. I think it's about honoring what you like, and we get made wrong for what we like. Like it's wrong. It's like, why is it wrong? Oh, it's wrong. You shouldn't spend a whole day at golf. Why not? Like, if you love golf, go to golf.
Couldn't think of anything worse.
No. But for some,
I thought we were talking about doing good things. Yeah, not punishing ourselves. It's a really interesting phenomenon. I've always loved the whole concept of hedonism. That people pursue that as a lifestyle, right? That everything is the pursuit, is a hedonistic pursuit.
Oh, I just love it. And it's like the complete opposite path to enlightenment from the Buddhist path of suffering, And I've got a friend he's like, oh, Lisa, without the mud, there is no lotus. And I'm like, oh, fuck the mud. Like, can we just focus on the lotus? Like, do we have to just be in the mud and be suffering? And, I don't understand how suffering, I have suffered and have learned from suffering. So I do understand it, but don't invite it in. It's going to turn up anyway. Like, suffering's always around the corner. Like, there's always shit. And I think for me, I go, when I make myself happy and I live the life that fulfills me, I've got more air in my tires. So when something happens, I can bounce through that. But if you're already flat and you've got no air in your tires and something hits you, you're just like, there's no yield, there's no bounce, because you're just on such bare bones as it is, that you don't have the bounce to be able to go, whoa, yeah, I just lost a client, or whoa, yeah, my kid just got sick, or, you need bounce, because life's hard. Life is definitely hard.
No, I can tell you the, having that one day of playing the card, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want day today. I reckon 50 or 60 of our members are using that consistently, and have got their partners to use it. And it's so obvious. It's like, you know what? I just want one day where everyone else can just get fucked, right? Yep. And I'm going to go and stay in a hotel on my own, or I'm going to go and play golf if that's what you like, or, do underwater basket weaving all day.
Or I'm just going to, and no one's allowed to comment on what I eat or what I wear or whatever the hell it is, I think it's so important. And we just don't spend enough time doing that stuff.
Have you found also, now that you're being able to get back into some more live stuff in the last few months or so as well, live speaking and things like that as well?
I've got my first gig in Australia, so I'm flying over. Now they've opened the borders, and I've got a gig on the 6th of May, and
nice.
In the contract I have to appear live if I can. So now that the borders are open.
Yeah.
I was like, shit.
Excellent.
Shit. So now it's really interesting though, because they're like, oh yeah, well, you've got to come to Melbourne. And I'm like, wow, if they hadn't opened the borders, I would have done, an hour and a half here in my studio. Now I've got to spend 2.5 days in Melbourne. I'm like, But you can't underestimate, being in Crown Plaza in Perth in the big ballroom and all the numbers.
Of course. Yeah. And I think as a speaker,
you want to look at it on an economy of scale. You go, hang on, that's really not smart because it's the same income.
Yeah.
And
it's not smart, but as a speaker and things, I find that, there's just, you cannot get from, you can get the same money. Yeah, you can get the same money from sitting on a Zoom, but you can't get the same, you can't get the same outcome. Right? So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's such a powerful thing. That's why we do what we do. But
my conditioning through life is having a seizure in this conversation. Like this, I've just been taught from the all boys school I went to as a good Catholic that everything that you do in life is bad. And when you're thinking about having sex,
good. No, I think the conditioning, and unfortunately, all boys school Catholic, there's triple conditioning on that, right? So I get that. I've got a lot of that in my family, and I know what you're talking about. It's just enormous, and it's like everything that you want to do is wrong, and you're like, what does that do to your head? And basically, you spent your whole life being made wrong, and so it's very hard for you as an adult to now make yourself right. It's quite a journey. And I think beliefs is really important. Like I say to people, what do you believe? And they're like, I don't know, what do you mean? I'm like, what do you believe about, what will happen? It's like, will you go blind if you play with yourself? They're like, well, I was told that. I'm like, do you believe it? Like, what are the beliefs?
You need glasses, but you certainly don't go blind.
There you go. It's not that bad then. The outcome's okay. But it's funny, like you look at all the different things and you think, what's your belief about that? What's your belief about when someone dies? What do you believe? I'm a funeral celebrant and I love funerals. Like I love them. And I'm always like, I always say to people at the funeral, so what do you think's happening to old Jim up there? What do you reckon? Where do you reckon Jim's gone? And they're like, and some of them can't handle that conversation. They're just like,
wow. I'd imagine you'd need a particular type of family to bring you to a funeral, Lisa.
Yeah. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. But it's I really enjoy funerals because I think it's so important to honour people's lives. And I think it's the last soiree. So it's like
so who if you could pick anyone in the world to be at your funeral and, play that role for you, who would you pick?
Oh yeah, that's really interesting. I don't know. It would have to be someone who could. I have an absolute frustration with people who can't speak properly at funerals. They're like, oh, now we're going to hear from old Bozo over here. And he's like, I'm like, can you just deliver your message? And as a speaker, I'm so intolerant. Don't let people speak who can't. Read it out for them. Get someone that's clear and concise and can deliver a message, because people that can't speak, you'd hear them, they're going around and around with the same sentence and it's painful. So yeah, it would have to be someone who was very good at speaking and someone who knew me very well. And someone that actually would probably be Matt Church, my mentor and business partner at Thought Leaders. He knows me very well and is a very good speaker. And I think he would probably pull that off. He has both sides. My husband doesn't speak at all, so there's no way he barely spoke at our wedding, so he certainly wouldn't speak at my funeral. I could get maybe my eldest son would probably pull it off. But I think you've got to be able to speak and you've got to know the person. So that's my rule with funerals. I only do funerals for people I know. I don't turn up and just yabber on about some,
that'd make sense.
Food in a box. Yeah.
It's interesting. I had my lawyer, she's a real force of nature in her mid-60s, and she got divorced a couple of times, so she thought the ultimate irony was to become a marriage celebrant, and now she's goes through this whole process. She's very bespoke and unique when you bring her to your wedding, but she just loves it, the irony of marrying people and she's unable to sustain a relationship, and for her she just revels in the humor of it. And I think It's so important.
I'm a marriage celebrant as well, but I find it really tedious because everyone's trying to do, they're full of anxiety. They're trying to be impressive. They've got all the wrong things right. It's like, oh my God, like they all look good, but no one's speaking. And it's like, it's such a cheesy arrangement. And I go,
so what's the perfect marriage look like? You've seen a few. What would your advice be to a couple hitching for the rest of their lives to optimize the big day?
I think you've just got to just find someone who you actually like and who wants to make your life better, because that's the point. The point is you're supposed to contribute to each other's lives, and it's like your job is to make them happy, their job is to make you happy. Well, not so much make them happy, but contribute. Like I think you need to make yourself happy, so it's not your job to complete someone else, but it is your job to contribute to them. And you know, if you see couples who they're actually nasty to each other, like they're actually mean, they're so done. It's like, if you're done, get out. Don't stay in the room and be mean. And I think, and you've got to want the same things. You've got to know, what are we doing here and what's the plan? And you can imagine I was very explicit when I met Mark. I was like, right, I'm going to be self-employed. I want 4 children. I want to live in that house. So I'm doing this. And he was like, okay. And he was quite happy. It's funny. I said to my eldest son the other day, I said, look, all you need, darling, is a girl with a plan and you'll be fine, because he's bumbling around. And now he's got a girl with a plan. He goes, Mum, she's got lists in her phone. I'm like,
oh, wow.
Check the lists, agree with the lists. And, you know, if that's what you want, like, but just check the list. Like, it blows me away when people have been married 3 years and then they have a discussion about, and one of them goes, I don't want kids. And I'm like, hang on a minute. You didn't talk about that? Like,
yeah.
Are you serious? You know, just get a plan. Like, what are we doing? And what is the plan? What are we in for?
It's hard for people though. Like, people are very good at that. I remember when I was young and people would say, like, just be yourself. Like when you're trying to find a girlfriend, you want a great job, like just be yourself. And you'd be there going, I'm not sure I know who that is. I don't know. And I think people carry that their whole lives. And you think about getting into a marriage in your mid-20s and you think you know what you want and you think you know who you are. And then you go and make this lifelong commitment. I think obviously it sounds like you kind of had it figured out right from the start and you're living that life still. But for so many people, don't you think they just lack that clarity?
Yeah, and I think the problem is because the person you are, like when I was 26, when I got married, I'm a completely different human now. And I'm just very lucky. My husband is so tolerant. Which I'm super lucky. Like I selected, he's very calm, very tolerant. But people get really threatened by growth. And so I know a lot of couples where one partner's become very successful or grown a lot and the other one's got really, really either kind of really annoyed about it or really fearful of it. And that's a problem too. And you've got to be prepared to grow. And I was talking to my daughter about getting married and I said, I reckon just get a lease. Just go 3 by 3 by 3. Just get a right to renew. And every 3 years go, you reckon? Are we good? Because I like the idea of that. But I think, you know, marriage is as a happily married person, I say marriage is a very flawed concept.
I've never heard the lease concept. I've never heard the lease concept before, but how much less, if you had to actually renew and be conscious about renewing, how much, you know, I mean, like a lot of time people go, you know what, I think it's time to move to another lease because of these reasons. And it'd be less stressful. There'd be less financial rubbish going on, less, you know, damaged kids and families. And because of, you know, people that have been 10, 15, 20 years with kids and it all turns ugly. Because that's the thing. It's the thing of concept of until death do you part. When they created that, you only lived to like 35 or 40.
That's right. Exactly. And also there's no kind of exit clause because the only exit clause is to blow everything up, which is very destructive, right? Instead of, and I really like Neil Donald Walsh, who's one of my favorite authors. He talks about how the word divorce comes from the Latin word to divert. And it doesn't mean to end, it just means to change. So you go, hey, cool. So we've been together 20 years. We did this cool family thing. Reckon we need to divert now. I'm going to hop off over here and, you know, get a girlfriend or whatever I'm going to do. And you should go over there and you can get a girlfriend too if you want. And we're still going to have a relationship. We're still going to co-parent. We're still going to be mates. We're still going to maybe own property, but we're actually going to divert into new relationships. And I love that concept. It's really free thinking, but and a lot of people would never be able to handle that concept. But I go to actually sign a piece of paper at 25 to go, I'm going to stick with this human till I die. Like it's a very weird concept.
And a lot of what you talked about is exactly the situation that I, met my wife, Nat, when I was 25. That was 21 years ago. Last year, we made the decision to diverge and to do it in a very, very conscious way. And even my lawyer's just gone, sorry? Oh, sorry. And even my lawyer has said...
Very, very Gwyneth Paltrow of you, mate. Conscious uncoupling. Yeah.
Well, and it doesn't mean that it's easy, but it's been done consciously. Even the lawyer said, I really commend what you guys are doing the way you're doing it. She said, because 99% of people don't do it the way you're doing it, and it's very amicable. It's very what's fair and equitable, what's going to work. We've got 2 kids, they're 12 and 9. They've got a lot of time of influential period. I know what I went through, as a child experiencing my parents break up, and that was very negative, and my brothers and other people's as well I've seen around me, which has been a horrendous experience. It's like, do we want that? Or can we make something that actually works for us and the kids and actually, it's conscious, got to be conscious. And we know we're not perfect.
Yeah, I've got 2 friends that have done the conscious uncoupling thing, and they stayed living in the same house, moved into, and now have bought houses in the same street. So the kids run up and down the house, and they're like, and it's really their whole mission was, we want to be an example of adults behaving well and not adults behaving badly. And kids are always watching, and it's like, what are they learning?
Oh, exactly. You're still a family, but you're still a family. It's just changed. And that's the thing. We go almost once a week. We'll go out together for a meal, and that's normal. And it's like, this is, as you said, adults behaving like adults, And so and again, we've made some mistakes, and I'm sure there's more to come, and we're doing the best we can. But it is again about that view of what's going to make us happy is releasing the hounds on each other and destroying each other for 3 years, and the relationship with our kids and stuff. Is that going to make us happy? Or is us just taking responsibility for the last decisions we made for the last 20 years and going, maybe it's just not working. Let's try it when we diverge,
No, it's not. People look at all this stuff as failure. Like, it's no failure when you go, if you had a business and you ran for 20 years and you created 2 smaller businesses, that would be such a raving success, which is what you've done.
Particularly if your business partner took all the profits, and did their own thing. Talking to other business partners, 2:00 in the morning. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's like, and I think it's about what's okay and what's not okay. And I really like Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. They've got an amazing, Jada has a thing called The Red Table, which is an extraordinary kind of Facebook podcast. And they talk a lot, and they talk about everything. And Will Smith said, I want the best for you. And if the best for you is another guy for a weekend, you should do that. And it's quite mind-blowing. Their relationship's really interesting. And he said, I am yours forever, and I want to be in your life forever, and I want to look after you and support you and love you, but I don't own you, and I want you to do whatever makes you happy. And it's like, wow, like it's very extraordinary.
Yeah, that ownership and control is so damaging in a relationship. Like, I'm in a relationship.
Yeah. It's fear and control, and it's shit. Fear and control. Like, you can't talk to someone and you can't go here. I'm like, wow. I think Mark knew from the minute he met me, there was no way he was going to be able to control me. And I don't operate out of fear. So I'm like, just don't. And like, I don't play tennis, and he loves tennis, and he doesn't dance. So I have an extraordinary friend. I go dancing, we dance, and I'm like, I dance with him. You can play tennis with him. I don't care, like, whatever. And people just got to decide what they're okay with, and what works. But it's an important conversation. People don't have the important conversations.
Oh, absolutely. Wow, super. I love it. An unorthodox existence. It's a shame that more people don't live that way.
I think it's the conversations with themselves first. Yeah, I think it's more progressively. Yeah, I think it's happening more. But it's that conversation with yourself you're not having. What was that?
Absolutely. I think the conversation with yourself and then the conversation with others. I've got a nephew who's now living in a throuple. So he's got 2 partners, and they all live together, and they're all very happy. And I'm just like, that's awesome, and a lot. And how does that work? And I'm really intrigued by it. And he's like, it's awesome. And I'm like, wow, like, holy shit. And they're so funny about it. Like,
I've got a friend as well. He and his wife, they divorced 6 years ago. They still live in the same house with their kids, and they're both swingers. And they just do that stuff outside the house in their own life, but they look after the kids and our friends, really good friends. Otherwise, it's unorthodox.
It's so
Works for
good,
them,
right?
and they're so happy.
Yeah. And I think we've got to stop all these rules and all this guilt. And, you know, when my third child, she was 2 weeks late being born, and I was working as an art director, and I had a photo shoot in the Gold Coast. So she was on a plane at 4 days old, and I went through customs, and the guy went, "Can you even do this?" Like, he's looking at her date of birth, and the passport photo is just a ball of muslin. I could have taken anything out of the country. And you know, it was really funny, and everyone was like, "You can't do that." I'm like, "Why not?" And, you know, she didn't know. She didn't talk to any other 4-day-olds and go, "Has your mother been on a plane? Like, what's going on?" And so no one knows. Like, whatever's normal in your world is your world. And I think we get so stuck in this conditioning piece of what we should do, you know, that you should meet someone and you should be with them forever, and mum should be at home, or dad should be at home, or whatever the bloody rules are. It's really boring. I mean, just do you. Like, work out what you want and what you don't want. And that's a really good starting point. And then find someone who fits into that mold, so that are kind of happy with that. Like, I'm just really lucky. My husband's really happy running around after kids. He loves that. And he doesn't really have big career aspirations. He's not interested in going off and doing his thing. So I'm like, awesome. And he's like, yeah, you do it. I don't want to do it. So I'm like, good. I think if you had 2 career people, that might be a bit challenging. Or you had 2 people going, "Man, I might stay home." That might not work either.
That's awesome. Amazing insights, actually. It's funny having these conversations and your natural reaction is to go, "Oh, that's too much fun," or, "Oh, hang on, that can't work that way." It actually...
Yeah, or it's not okay.
Response.
Or
yeah,
it's not okay.
Exactly.
It's wrong. You know what I mean? Like,
and I can imagine Lisa sitting in a room with some people that I know, and they would be like, "There's no way. What? You are mad. You can't do it."
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really happy to be mad, and I like it. I had a guy once I worked with sent a testimonial in, and he said, "You're completely bonkers." And I said, "That is the nicest thing anyone could ever say to me." I love it. Because it means I haven't gone under the blanket, you know. And I think I love it when people go, "Oh, you can't do that." And I go, "Why? Why can't you do that? And if you did, what would happen? And who told you couldn't do that? Where did that come from? Where did that piece of information get planted in your brain that that's not okay?" And it's like,
whose story is it? Is that your story, or is that somebody else's? That's right. And 99% of the time, it's someone else's. Yeah.
And when you're old, you get to go, "It's not a story I believe in anymore." So, you know, I had a conversation with my father-in-law how I don't believe in sin. He's like, "I don't think there's such a thing. I think there's right and wrong, but I don't believe in sin." He's like, and, yeah. I'm not aware. My husband's always like, "Oh, please don't start that at dinner."
Again, yeah. Sure it's probably not the first time, and I imagine they're probably not the last either.
At the family dinner, he's like,
kicking you under the table.
And I have no judgment on people's beliefs. Like, I don't care if you believe in bloody Jesus or Elton John, or I couldn't give a shit what people believe in. I just am really interested in, why do you believe in that? Do you really believe in it, or is it a belief you were given?
Don't impose that bullshit on others as well. I think that's the other key part. Like, if you want to, live these structured, disciplined lives and a life of misery, you can't judge other people around you because they choose not to.
Well, my husband's family were horrified when we had children, and I said they're not going to be Catholic, and they were like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, look, I don't care if they want to be Catholic. If they want to be Catholic, I will do everything I can and support them." But to me, it's the same as going, "Right, maybe you will be a plumber when you grow up. That is your mission." Like, you don't get to bestow what someone. I'm like, I want these kids to choose their own beliefs. And if they want to be Catholics or Buddhists or Mormons, I couldn't give a shit what they do, but just do them. You know, like, my youngest got really into God. He was like, "Mum, I want to go to church." And we were like, "Okay. Good-o." So off we went, and we took him to church, and he had church shirts, and he was very into church. He got very earnest, and he loved it. And it was hilarious. And he joined a Baptist church. My husband was like, I was like, "No, this is great. Like, look at him. He's having such a good time." And, you know, he moved through it, but it was just hilarious. And I think you've got to let people explore different things. And I want my kids to choose their own beliefs. I want them to, and we have conversations all the time about, "What do you believe?" And my son's like, "I don't believe any of that stuff you believe." I'm like, "Cool, you don't need to. It's not, you know, you do you. Work it out." Yeah. Don't just believe what you got told.
Incredible philosophy. So one of the things that you know, clearly you've learned and grown, as you said, when you got married back when you were 25 and things like that. You're a different version of yourself. Now that you've gone through, a larger, number of years of development and learning not to give a shit about what other people think and really focusing inward on your own level of happiness. If you were to go back and visit yourself, at the age of one of your kids are now, what would you actually say to them? What sort of advice would you impart to them? What wisdom would you impart?
Oh, just you're better than you think you are, and you've got this. Like, you'll be fine. You will be fine. I believe everyone's born with everything inside them that they need for their journey. And so I'm like, just if in doubt, go within and you will find the answer. You'll find the strength. You've got what you need. And you get, I hate that whole you only get seen where you can handle, but you kind of do. So whatever happens to you, I do believe that is meant to happen to you. And it's like my best friend's husband dropped dead. He was 46, didn't wake up. And she goes, oh my God. So the morning he died, I'm standing in her kitchen and she's going, I can't do this. I said, you can. And she goes, how do you know? I said, because you've got no fucking choice. Like, you're doing this. You don't get any choice. You were doing this and you've done hard stuff and you have to do this. So there's no option. And I go, everything hard that's ever happened, you've survived. 100% of your hard days.
It's so true.
You've done it. And it's like, so why would you not survive the next 100 hard days? Like, anything that happens to you, you can do this. You've got it. And if you just believe it, I just go, okay, I've got this. I don't know how I've got it. I don't know why I've got it, but I've got it. And then I unravel how I'm going to do it and what. But I think just go, wow, okay, cool, got it. Now I've got to deal with whatever this thing is in front of me. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit. It's like, we can do really hard stuff and we are better than we think we are. And our bodies are extraordinary. Our minds are extraordinary. If you look after yourself, you can do anything, but not if you don't look after yourself mentally and physically. Like, if you lose your mind, good luck. If you lose your body, good luck. So I think just looking after yourself and honoring your mind and body is really important. But once you've done that, you go, yeah, I've got this. I can handle anything.
No, that's awesome. That's such great insights. It's so refreshing, Lisa, to hear your point of view. Now, if anyone's interested in reaching out to Lisa, you can find her on lisaoneil.co.nz. And I tell you what, it's a veritable smorgasbord of help available there, Lisa. So what would you say to our listeners, Lisa, looking to make their first step towards a happy life tomorrow? What's your hot number one tip?
Just get off your ass and do something. Like, just do something. People just need to, like, the life you want is on the other side of what you're not doing. And it's like, just do something. Do the hard stuff. Do the big stuff. Do something. And if in doubt, get up and move. Get up and do something. Send an email. Write something down. Draw a picture. Bloody tidy. I don't know. Just do something. People don't take enough action.
I love it.
I'm an actionator. I don't do much. I sort of tend to do a lot of doing. I'm very do. And it's like, you get momentum from doing.
Oh, absolutely.
And you get fear from not doing. So just do. Do you.
Awesome. Thanks so much again, Lisa, for taking time out of your busy day to talk to Sean and I. We really loved the opportunity to have a chat. And that wraps up another episode of The Few. Thank you to our partners, Afterburner, for team building, development and alignment. We understand now how important it is to have the right people around you. Get them on board with where you want to go. Momentum Media, the largest industry publisher in the country, connecting your business to the Australian community. ICMI, Australia's premier speaker bureau, representing the few that do fulfill their life's purpose. And finally, Sean's Inner Circle, the business coaching organisation for small and medium enterprises looking to make that next step. Thanks again for listening in and downloading today. Please leave a review on whatever platform you are currently listening to this podcast and reach out to our partners who can help you make the transition to the few.
You're very welcome. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk to you two.
Thanks, Lisa. Really appreciate it.